Thea before?
No. Sorry?
Thea.
Yeah. Okay, I call the January 29th meeting of the school committee to order. I'll take a quick run through, we're all here, no roll calls, that's fantastic. Let me take a quick run through the agenda and then we'll go ahead and jump in. We'll start with public comment for anything that's not on the agenda. We'll take a vote on the consent agenda. We will go to reports. In the new business section, we've got Jane and Katie here to give us a presentation on the status and future of the Pleasant Street Center. We will revisit something we tabled last time, which was the awarding of the David B. Libby scholarships. Dr. Milichewski will review, and then we'll take a vote to approve a RISE director search process. And then in old business, we'll take up the facility naming advisory committee discussion that we started the process of in our last meeting. We'll have any final discussion and then a vote to approve the FY27 budget. We've got two fee topics, which we tabled, 2-3 meetings ago when we first talked about fees for next year, which we'll take up this evening and potentially vote to approve. And then I'll run through some updates on the superintendent search process, and we've got a few things to formally approve and a few things I would just love the committee's perspective and sort of informal sign off on, if you will. So. All right, with that, let's start with anything from a public comment perspective. If there's anybody who'd like to comment on anything that's not on the agenda, I see one potential candidate. All right, fair enough. All right, so we'll pass on public comment. We can move to the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the consent
Is there
agenda.
a second?
Second.
Seconded by Tom. All in favor? All opposed, and it carries 6-0. All right, let's move to reports, and we'll start with you, Thea.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, to reintroduce myself, my name is Thea Cuna. I'm a junior here at RMHS. Okay, so some upcoming events for the school. Our report cards are going to be published for semester 1 and term 2 and our midterm grades and everything, so that's great. And we have early release on February 2nd, and yes, we get out at 1:05, and our winter drama show for the drama club is coming up February 6th and 7th at 7:30 p.m., and on the 8th, which is a 2 p.m. matinee. And on the 12th, there's a choir event, Guys Night Out at 7 p.m. at the PAC, and then February break from the 16th to the 20th. And we have the program of studies for next year, and we have some new semester-based courses like Introduction to Business, Financial Literacy, and dual enrollment classes like for the arts and business and English. And today we actually had Career Day for all juniors. So over 40 professionals came in and presented, and all juniors heard from 4 different professionals. And that was successful. It was very exciting. And we have some international trips. Next spring, it looks like kids are going to get the chance to go to Japan, which is pretty cool. And the Swiss exchange will also be taking place again next year, should students be interested. So, yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So much.
So as we always say at the end of our student report, you are welcome to stay for as much of the meeting as you'd like, but we also know that all of the members of the Student Advisory Committee typically have about 1 million different things they're involved in, so you're welcome to go whenever you'd like as well. So.
Thank you very much.
She's like, I'm out. Don't blame me, Thea. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's go to liaison reports, and I will start with Laura.
No report.
Tom?
No report.
Sarah?
No report.
Aaron?
No report.
Wow. Sean, I have no report.
Sorry.
Carla, I will kick to you.
So sorry.
Carla will always.
I know. Killam update. The next KSBC meeting will be on February 9th. We have executive leadership team meeting on February 4th. At that meeting, we will be voting to send our 90% design documents to the MSBA, which have to get there by February 10th, which is awesome. The exciting news is that we will be having a furniture sit test where all different pieces of furniture that will go in RISE preschool and into the K through 5 space, all the options will be brought into the gym at Killam. And teachers and staff will be able to, and possibly some students too, will be able to just go around and pick out ones that they like. It's actually a fascinating process, because you're dealing with more functionality at this time, not actually colors and things like that. We'll get to a point where we're going to try and make sure everything coordinates well. So that will be on February 11th and 12th, all day on February 12th. We've been having meetings on the fencing on Haverhill Street, what type of fence, and the surrounding plantings, and discussions about a temporary entrance that we have to have for the school when we demolish the building at the end of the school year in 2028, demolish the existing building because the children will be in the new building. We'll have to switch the entrance to the school to the back of the school, so we have to plan that out. It involves a lot with drop-off and pickup, and the contractors' vehicles and things like that. And Sean has allowed me to do a point of personal privilege, so I figure I will do it now. Good evening, everyone. I wanted to take a few moments tonight to share a personal decision with the community. After careful thought, I have decided that I will not be running for another term on the school committee. My time in this committee began at an extraordinary moment. I was sworn in the day before the schools were forced to close due to COVID-19, and nearly every aspect of our work was shaped by that crisis. We were asked to make decisions that affected students, families, and staff during a time of fear, uncertainty, and constantly changing guidance. There were no easy answers and often no perfect options, only choices that had to be made under difficult circumstances and intense public scrutiny. Serving during that period was challenging, at times exhausting, and always consequential. It required balancing health and safety, educational needs, family realities, and limited resources, all while conditions continued to evolve. While reasonable people often disagreed, I believed that this committee approached that work with sincerity, care, and shared commitment to doing what was right for the best of our students. I first ran for school committee more than 6 years ago because I had serious concerns about our district. I ran on a platform focused on bullying, knowing that meaningful change was needed because our children deserved better. As I reflect on how far the district has come, I am proud of the progress we've made. The single most important decision we made as a committee, in my opinion, was the hiring of Dr. Milichevsky. Under his leadership, the district has achieved several significant milestones, some of which including offering tuition-free full-day kindergarten, an achievement that would not have been possible without acknowledging Tom Wise as the funding mastermind. Expanding math pathways and educational tracks in the high school, along with developing internship opportunities and dual enrollment classes. Implementing ARC Core and other high-quality curriculum across all levels of the district. Increasing our Boston resident enrollment and advancing our METCO program into one that is admired across the state. Creating and truly living our equity statement centered on the belief that all means all for both students and staff. Being innovative and fiscally responsible by leveraging a variety of revenue sources. Earnestly providing appropriate services to our special education students. Hiring district-wide curriculum coaches, adjustment counselors, and assistant principals at every school. Coaching and empowering our dedicated staff to be the very best that they can be for our students. And keeping national political noise out of the classroom, a gift not only to our students and staff, but to our entire community. We have also successfully moved the Killam School Building Project forward, As long as the committee wishes, I will continue to lead this effort. We have a strong and talented team, including dedicated designers and OPMs, and I am proud to say that the project remains on time and under budget. In the coming weeks, we will submit our 90% design documents to the MSBA. I want to sincerely thank my fellow school committee members for their collaboration and dedication, even when we did not always agree. I believe that this committee serves as a model for how school committees can and should operate. I also thank our administrators, educators, and staff for their professionalism and unwavering commitment to our schools. And I'm grateful to the families and community members who stayed engaged, asked hard questions, and cared deeply about the direction of the district. It truly takes a village. I will continue to work hard through my final day. Thanks to Sean's dedication in streamlining the search process, the town elections will be held on April 7th, and we will meet on April 6th to select a new superintendent to lead the district. I remain confident in the future of this district and in the people who continue in this important work. I look forward to supporting our schools as a community member and advocate. Serving on this committee has been an honor. Thank you for the trust you placed in me and the opportunity to serve. Thank you. Thank you, Sean.
So sometime in early April, we'll have a meeting where I'm sure we'll all say lots of nice things. But I'll say the short version tonight. And you alluded to it. You know, we certainly bumped heads in those early days pretty aggressively, I would say. And you know, but it really has been a pleasure to work with you. And the partnership that you and I in particular, but the committee as a whole, have built over the years has been rewarding and fruitful. And we've served in these capacities together a couple times now. And as you alluded to, there is a path to us appointing Carla as the school committee, lead on the building project. So we'll have a, I didn't want to put it on the agenda tonight, but at some point we'll put on the agenda, kind of formally, discussing that and making a decision there. But, Carla has graciously offered to continue in that role. And given some of the turnover that we're going to have, I think we would be wise to take advantage of that opportunity. So we'll leave it there for now, and certainly more to say in the coming months. Okay, that was liaison reports. So we'll move on to new business now, and Jane and Katie, you can take it away. Yeah, you can come join us up here, probably at the table closest to Laura.
Okay.
Get you both on camera. I have the presentation here I can share.
Got it.
Bear with me just a second. Tom, is it asking you to approve sharing from the NEAT pad?
I thought I had made it already. Host session.
Yeah, I would have thought so too, but here we are.
Oh, yeah, some of that too, but it's good.
Let's try this again. All right. Do you want your own clicker?
Here we go. Oh, look, our own clicker. I get the clicker. Just say slide, please. Next slide, please. No.
Yeah, you're never getting that clicker back,
I get the clicker?
You click that.
I get the clicker. You guys are in so much trouble. You gave me
Buy your clicker.
technology. Oh, boy. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just as a reflection, congratulations, Mrs. Nazaro, on your work. You have a tremendous body of work that you have dedicated to the town of Reading, and I thank you for it as a member of town staff.
Thank you.
And it's been a pleasure to work with you, and I hope we do get to continue to work together. You too. I'm Jane Wellman. I'm the Assistant Town Manager, and I have two departments. It's kind of one, but also two. Public Services and the Administrative Services. I am here with Katie Gabriello. She is the Director of Operations, and in that role, she manages risk and communications and procurement. So we are here tonight with our procurement hats on to talk about the future of the Pleasant Street Center. One of the things the state likes us to do when we're talking about disposal of town property, and particularly a municipal building, is to do what we're doing tonight, which is a bit of a road show, and talking to boards, committees, and commissions about how you, in your unique roles to the community, see a future for this public building. And so we're your second stop. We started with the Historic Commission first. So you gave me, is that the right one?
Are we out of range?
Uh-oh.
All right.
I'm now pressing all of them.
What a
Yeah, I
disappointment.
really shouldn't have made such a big deal out of it.
They gave me a tool, I can't even use it. Wow. Next slide, please.
Next slide, there we go.
There it
Okay,
is.
look at that. All right, fantastic.
Okay.
And I also have it here in front of me because my glasses are kind of funky.
That's fair, that's fair.
So this, you saw this in your packet, quick facts about the Pleasant Street Center. Our first municipal building, built in 1883. The finished living area is 4,300 square feet. That includes 3 floors. And the old jail is still there, which is kind of neat, and the bars are gone, though. And that's in the basement near the backside, near where the parking lot entrance is, if you're interested. We had a commercial appraisal done last spring as an effort as we moved forward to the recount vote. And so that commercial appraisal came in at $965,000. Potential rental is $72,000. The building is up to code, so it's sprinklered, the elevator works, but it's older, and so that's a consideration. And some people ask this, the commercial appraiser was certified to do historic buildings. There is, which we learned last week, Matt knew this, but I didn't know this, that there's a preservation restriction on the building, so that's something that we'll have to look into for whatever the future use is. The Historic Commission mentioned that to us. The site is a multifamily zone, but it is too small for the minimum lot requirement for like a developer to do something. So it could still be housing if we did something with the housing authority or something along those lines, but right now a developer wouldn't be able to develop it. It's on the Historic Register. It's also on the National Historic Register of Historic Places, and there's a preservation. I think we added that after, you added that after last time.
After we learned about that, yes.
Indeed, she did. Moving on, next slide, please, sir. So with this property, we can do 4 things. We can sell it, we can keep it for future town use, we could gift it to the Housing Authority to make some housing with it. They could do studio units, 3, maybe 4, or we could lease it to a for-profit or a not-for-profit entity. We could do a lease for now with the intent that later we might have to use it for something that you as a member of a board can envision in the future. In 10 years, we're going to need something, or in 5 years, we think we're going to need something. So that's what we're here tonight to kind of get your appetite on. You don't need to make a vote. We would love to hear your thoughts. You can give us feedback now, you can email us later, or you can call us up on the phone, we'll chat, we're fun. But that's what we're looking for, sort of, do you, in your role, see a use for the town that you would like us to keep under consideration? We will collect all of the information here, we will do also a community-wide survey, and then we will present those responses back to the select board. Next slide, please. Oh, go ahead.
Jump in?
Yeah, of course.
Early feedback from the select board, from the historic commission, kind of generally, folks have been leaning towards, we should keep this building, right? It's so centrally located. Of course, it's serving as our senior center now. It's not serving that purpose very well anymore, and we're getting the new Reading Center for Active Living. But the general temperature does seem it would behoove us to hold on to this building and see how we could potentially utilize it in maybe new, innovative ways, as we'll see on the next slide, how some other communities have utilized historic properties or other municipal buildings.
Why don't you take us through it?
Sure. So you might be familiar with the Inspire Cafe in Wakefield. This is a public-private partnership between the town and the Boys and Girls Club. They provide employment to individuals with diverse abilities. And, you know, being right next door in Wakefield, hopefully some of us have had a chance to visit there. It's a great place. The sandwiches, the salads, everything's really good. Looking at Peabody, they have the Breaking Grounds Cafe, created by the Northeast Arc, supports local restaurants. So these are 2 kind of nonprofit examples in other communities that we've seen. And then on the next slide, we have some additional repurposed examples that are more kind of arts focused. So Natick has the Center for the Arts, and there's the Firehouse Center for the Arts in Newburyport. And these are both, as you can see in Natick, certainly bears a striking resemblance to our Pleasant Street Center, also a former fireplace in that community that is since. Fire station.
Fireplace.
Fireplace. Put the fires out from the fireplace. That they have, these both have been revitalized to be thriving centers for the arts in their communities. Serving as performance venues for music, theater, there's gallery space, there's the chance for education. I'm sure they bring lecturers and the like into both of these places, these communities.
And one other idea I've talked about, and I've talked about this with the Historical Commission, is maybe something along the lines of an Athenaeum. So it's a bit of a town museum and a performance space. You know, it could meet a couple of different needs. So it's a little bit arts, a little bit intellectual, a little bit of meeting space kind of thing that is kept. There are grants to help us study some of this work. And we'll pursue, we're already starting to like look at what can we pursue that makes sense so we can help make informed decisions. So that's sort of another option that's been done. Next slide, please. So because nothing's ever easy in Massachusetts when it comes to procurement, Phil, I'm getting a big head nod from Phil, he knows. With the sale or lease of property, we have to engage in a competitive solicitation. So we could put out a proposal to lease it, but we can put in preferences for what we want. So if the community says we really want to lease it to a nonprofit, whatever the community, we can put that in there. So we might get a for-profit business, but if we want to keep it for a nonprofit use or for short-term nonprofit use, whatever, we can put that information in. We just want to know kind of where's the community coming in on that. And then another weird piece of procurement law is that, you want to take this one?
No, I don't like this. I'm confused by this one.
So the select board has the power to lease the building, the Pleasant Street Center building, to another entity. But they cannot lease in whole or in part, the parking lot, or the land. That has to go to town meeting as well. So that's just, okay. And that's like any piece of land, any lease of any piece of land. So you need town meeting approval, which is fine. So, if we were to lease it to something, we could also keep the parking lot as a municipal lot downtown and add, it's still a municipal lot, depending what the needs are. And that's all future stuff, but just a wrinkle to be aware of. And then, as Katie said earlier, the feeling from the select board right now is they seem to be favoring a lease versus a sale. And as we can see from the commercial valuation that we've done, it is a drop in the bucket. There's sometimes an appetite to think we can sell this building and we will offset our debt incurrence that we've gotten from something else, and that is de minimis comparatively. So the value that we may have from retaining the property for the community may be higher than the intrinsic value of selling it. So just, okay. And that's it. Next slide, please. Here we go. This is for you.
Short and sweet, love that.
And I'm sure many of you have already seen these slides at the select board or town meeting, or there's some repeats in here, but.
Yeah.
Question? Yep, Erin.
So not a question, just sharing feedback. I think your presentation speaks for itself in indicating that we should definitely hang on to the building. I would be really sad to see us just sell it off. I think if my time in local government has shown me anything, it's that a need always comes up, always, for more space. And there's lots of options, as you said. It could be that we need more office space. It could be that we need housing. It could be, lots of things. I love all of these ideas for different reasons, but I think it would be really foolish to sell it.
Thank you for that.
Others? Yeah, go ahead.
I'll go. When we looked at the square footage, not that I'm proposing to sell, but I want to make sure we understand the whole thing. Does that include the parking lot next to it as well?
No, that's the finished living space. It's the building.
So if one were to buy both the square footage of the parking lot and the building, would that qualify in the 40,000 square foot space?
No, because it's the lot. I'm sorry, you were asking about the lot, the square
Whole
footage of the
lot,
lot. No,
yeah.
that's the whole thing.
So that is.
That is the whole parcel. Yes, sir. Yep,
Which so does include that, okay.
yes.
I mean, just, because I know Fidel was looking at different things in that space and whatnot as well. So it seems like all those would not really viable then, based upon what you're saying, in terms of what he was looking at to sell it and maybe redevelop it into condominiums and
That's
all
right.
that kind of fun stuff, so,
Well, I mean, he started that work and we continued that work.
yeah.
Yeah. And
So in terms of other things, like the use of the space because of the building and the way it's laid out, I have a hard time seeing us renting it for much other than like a performing arts museum type space like you're laying out, unless we did massive renovations. That's maybe just me, maybe I'm not being creative enough, but knowing the upstairs and knowing the main floor and the pseudo kitchen, I don't know the downstairs as well. There's just, the partitioning isn't well for saying, okay, I can do 3 rentals of some sort and make certain things. So you have to do more or less the whole thing from a rental perspective, as far as I can see it. So with that said, you know, I think being creative about it and figuring out how to do some sort of, like you had laid out, I like your kind of, I don't know what you called it, arts slash library slash, you know, historical place, whatever that's called. I also love the idea, and with the kitchen there, if we could do something like what Wakefield's done. I really think that's phenomenal, and we could tie that to our program as well that we have for our
Yeah.
postgrads, right? I think that would be a really great collaborative association between the schools and the town. And it would also engender more enrollment in that program for us, because it's right down the street, which could be a natural other side of the revenue that could come in to help the overall town too. So just thinking creative school-town alliance, as well as that really, that Wakefield thing has been really beneficial for so many people, and it's gone really well. So, not that I want to be competitive with that, because there is a little bit of that, but I think the opportunity that it allows for people is really good. Then maybe upstairs could be more administrative space or something else like that, but the downstairs could be the cafe type space. So just food for thought in that related space.
Thank you, Mr. Wise. You made me think of something and then I lost my train of thought. One of the ideas that came up was like the cafe that you're talking about, like Inspire Cafe,
Yeah.
but also like a coffee house, like, remember in college, there were coffee houses, so it could be sort of like a little light entertainment in the early evening, you know, there's a cappella groups, or there's chorale, or something like that, involving student groups, a little open mic night, not too loud for the neighborhood, but well done, kind of engages that space also for youth. So, to your point.
Other thoughts?
I guess I have one more point, I
Please,
guess.
yeah.
Just the one thing I would caution us or say as we think about this is, whatever we do, we have to minimize the operational cost to us as a result of it, right? We already know we're adding additional operational cost with the Center for Active Living and a few things that we're gonna squeeze our budget. We already know we're facing, you know, potential override here coming in the year or two. So we have to be careful we don't add something that causes us to add 2, 3, 4, or 5 staff to support it, which is a challenge, even with the idea I just put forward. But, so that balance has to be there.
100%. Yep. Thank you for that.
Yeah, go ahead, Carla.
Thank you. The way I look at that building too is it didn't work out as our, you know, to remodel that for our senior center, because it was so extensive that, and the cost was prohibitive to do. So my concern is similarly, like, that the operating costs that it's going to bring to the town, it would need to be a revenue-generating type of situation in my mind. I kind of go back and forth with that, you know, selling it, you know, you're not going to gain much from it. But I want to be careful about, like, giving it away, so to speak. If we could be creative with the use and how to better use the space. I do think that we always are in need of space. I love the idea of of having like a cafe or something with our students to be able to do it, but I do worry about, okay, what happens when you start opening up the walls, or, that kitchen isn't in compliance now for a reason. So what would those expenses look like there?
Okay.
But it's a great-looking space, like for a, brewery and stuff, like it's a great-looking space, a cafe, something like that.
If a brewery bought it, that would be awesome. But we're selling, that would be a sale, right? So maybe there's a long-term lease for a brewery, but,
Yeah.
who wants to create that? We talk, a couple of us
And they don't
talked
even
about
need the parking lot, 'cause everybody just walks to breweries, right? Yeah, so, perfect.
Exactly.
Downtown in Reading, you can just walk to the brewery.
Firehouse Brew. Let's see it now.
That's good. You should trademark that.
All day long. Sean.
Some deep and smoky brews.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, I would mostly echo what folks said up here. The 965,000 is just not that appealing in the grand scheme of our, debt load and our operating budgets and whatnot. And I think space is so limited in town hall, in some of our buildings, that preserving the optionality to have town-owned space is there's option value there. So I think I would agree it's important for us to hold on to it. I think if we, do go down the path of leasing or selling it, I'd have a strong preference for something that is given the location, given the historical nature of the building, for something that really is like a community asset versus a purely commercial, purely commercial pursuit. I know the multifamily redevelopment is kind of out, but, even something that might require a variance, like a brewery, it'd be cool, but I also sort of, think that should remain like a community asset versus just a sort of a cool place to go and hang out, I guess. So, yeah. Any other thoughts from folks? All right. I think we just echoed the feedback you've been hearing for this, it sounds like.
I love that. I love that. If you think of other ideas, I always leave meetings and then later I'm like, So please feel free to reach out to Katie or myself and give us your ideas. People are starting to send stuff in, or like, here's a grant, or check this out. And so we are taking all that in and keeping track of it, and we're open to anything. Great minds, there's no, what's the word I'm looking for here? I'll think of it later. But we just, through your roles and your experience and your engagement with the community, you have a different, view than we do, and so we are relying on you to bring that forward. All right? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend. Stay warm.
Thank you. All right, let's move to the awarding of the David Livy Scholarships. Tom had an excellent memory last time and caught that there was a little typo there, so the amount's been corrected. It's in the packet. It's 22 scholarships at a total value of $88,000. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the expenditure of $88,000 from the David B. Libby Scholarship to be distributed in accordance with the scholarship's intent to 22 qualifying graduating seniors from Reading Memorial High School who reside in Reading, Mass.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Tom. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? All opposed, and it carries 6-0. All right, next we'll move to the RISE Director Search process, and Dr. Milichewski, I'll hand it to you.
Great. So in your packet, you should see both a cover letter that outlines a little bit of the context on the search, and then also a proposed timeline and process. So just to give a couple of points on that first, as you may remember, a couple of years ago when we hired Alana into the role, she committed to a 1 year in the role out of retirement. We're extremely fortunate that she agreed to continue this year. I think she's done an amazing job in the role and has been her leadership's been very well received by students, staff, and families in the community. So just like to start with a big thank you to Alana for her leadership and impact in our community, and also thank you for her for staying on an extra year during a time of transition. And we know that this was something that was coming, so we are also fortunate we think we're on the most favorable timeline. So you'll see here that we are recommending to post the position right after February break, which would allow us then to hire right again at the beginning of April. We think that's the most favorable timeline for recruiting and for recruiting candidates, and also locking someone strong in. Couple of things about the search. You'll see there's a few ways for community members and staff to be involved. That's either through staff and community survey, which will be released on the 23rd to share characteristics, attributes that the community seeks in the next leader, and also seeking members to participate on our screening committee. They'll then go through the screening process, and then we'll have, as you'll see, during the week of the 23rd, we'll still map out a little bit of what that finalist process will look like. We hope to have finalist candidates visiting Reading. We also know that can be sensitive, given just for some people who may be in seated roles, and also knowing that this is a pretty niche role, someone with special ed background, pre-K background, and looking for sort of that leadership role. So we are excited about the process. I met with the RISE staff today. They are, bittersweet, excited for Alana, and also excited to try to find the best candidate here for the school. They wanted to make a point loud and clear to the staff that how exciting it is for someone to not only come in and work with an amazing team and staff, but how exciting to help lead the school into a permanent, location, a state-of-the-art pre-K center, which they think should be a major sell for us in this process as well. So I'll pause there for any questions or thoughts.
I think it's just too bad the new leader won't get to participate in sit day or whatever that was called.
Sit day.
What was it called?
Furniture testing.
Fit test? Sit test? Sit test?
Sit test.
Sit test. There we go.
So besides the sit test, they'll have a lot of
Yeah,
to engage and shape out the future, right?
that's right. All right, any serious feedback or discussion on this one?
We can bring some of those chairs that you can.
There you go,
Stuff.
there you go. Okay, let's take a motion. I guess we should have done that first, but
Move to approve the RISE director search process as outlined.
is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Laura. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? All opposed, and it carries 6-0. Thank you.
Great, you'll hear from us again on that during the week of February 23rd.
Okay, all right, let's move to facilities naming. So just to sort of set this up, we'll start, I want to, see if there's any discussion on the request individually. And then, depending on sort of where the pulse of the committee is on each of the naming requests, we've got a choice on how we form the committee. There's nothing in our policy that suggests that we can't have a single advisory committee advise us on both of these nominations, given that they're both related to the sort of high school facility, sort of broadly. The one thing that could be a constraint would be that the building, the relevant building has to have the building principal as a member of the advisory committee. But since that would be Principal Callanan in both cases, I think we'd be fine to set up a single advisory committee. So if we choose to advance all of the, or both of these nominations to an advisory committee, we then can decide whether we want to create one or two or what have you. And then the last thing to do for us tonight will be if we create an advisory committee or committees, we'll just need to identify which of us will serve on that committee, because it does require one school committee member. So with that, let me first open up the discussion on the request from Claudia on naming the fitness center and then the training center / room / suite in honor of her parents and her father respectively. Any thoughts, feedback on that one? Not a formal vote, just kind of taking a pulse here.
Sounds lovely.
Incredibly generous. That's what it comes down to.
Great.
The new policy does allow that.
The policy does allow it.
Which the old policy did not allow, by
Yep.
the way. So
Wait, what?
old policy did not really allow this as a consideration.
Generosity?
Yeah.
It did have a clause allowing for, that you might consider nominations, as a result of the donation, but the requirements about who could then be eligible for something to be named after were much more restrictive. And so the new policy created some space where there probably wasn't enough before to
Okay.
consider this one. Yeah. Okay.
I just want to double check. I mean, I think the way she presented it, you may have it in email. If this matches what she presented in email, felt like I heard something different when she actually said it. So in terms of the actual naming, when we form the committee and making sure we align to exactly what she wants to call it or what she's asking for. And of course, the committee can come back and say, yes, we agree with that, or no, but I want to make sure it's consistent with what she asked for.
Yeah, this is how she had it in writing. It was the fitness center being named for her parents collectively and the training room being named for her father. And she left it as room, center, suite. I don't know what we call it today, if it's a room, a center, or a suite, but, you know, we have some flexibility there to have the advisory committee sort of recommend the appropriate nomenclature there. We can confirm it with her before we provide a formal charge to the committee, but that's what was in the written ask.
Yeah, I think she said something like, in loving memory of her daughter, blah, 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 or something like that.
You know, and I think I said in the memo, it's not here on the page, but I think I said with recognition of Claudia Nixon as the donor, yeah, so.
Whatever the.
Yeah, we'll copy, you know, emulate her language, but, you know, this was just intended to sort of describe the conversation writ large here, so. Okay, so I'm generally hearing support for that one. And then the second one was naming the press box for Ted Ace Bryson. This is another one where I do want to confirm something, because we had a discussion about, you know, is it Ted, is it Ace?
Right.
But the written request did ask for Ted Ace Bryson. So we'll go back and make sure there wasn't a misunderstanding there, that they don't, whether or not he wants Ace included at all, or just didn't want it to be Ace Bryson, you know, without Ted. So we'll confirm that piece, but this is how it was articulated in the written request.
Okay.
Any thoughts on that one?
The years of service are crazy.
Yeah.
53 or something like that. And that's the voice of Reading football, for lack of a better way to put it, so.
Yeah,
Seems on the nose appropriate.
agreed. And I know I've received, I don't know if they went to all of us, but I've received a lot of letters of folks in support of this one. All
I
right, so
haven't
they,
received any of them.
okay, so Phil must have just had them send them to me. So we'll get them in a packet when we consider a recommendation from the advisory committee I suspect we're about to form here. So, okay, all right, so I'm hearing general support for both of those. So before we kind of take a motion, does anybody have any particular thoughts on the merits of forming one committee versus two?
I think one makes a heck of a lot of sense. We've
Yeah.
done it before. The last time we did this, in fact, was a one for two names.
Was it?
Yep.
Oh.
Both the field and the the court.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you're right. Yep.
So the gym at the field house, right, was what we did. So in both of those cases, it was one, and they came back with a recommendation perfectly.
I mean, there's a lot of overlap
Yeah.
here, so it would be nice of us to, I think, to form one committee for people.
Yeah, it'll certainly be easier to recruit as well for some of the roles that we have to get populated.
Would you like a motion?
I would love a motion.
Move to form a fitness center / training room and press box advisory committee.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Is it-
Now, what's the acronym for that?
I'm not even going to try. We'll give it its formal name for now and go from there. Okay, so a second, any further discussion on that?
Yeah, I think there's a couple other things that, Sean, you're probably gonna have to draft as a result of this. So like, what is your sunset date? You know, most of the charge is probably copy pastable from
Yeah.
some of our old stuff, but with the updated language.
Yep.
So just as you think it through and whatnot, we're gonna have to accept that you're gonna write the charge at this point in time, because usually we vote
Oh,
on the
we've
charge as
approved that in
well.
the past, haven't we?
We
Yeah.
have. But I would motion that we let you write the charge, and it's not gonna be controversial.
So let's take the motion on the formation of the committee, and then we'll take a motion to, yeah, okay, fair. All right,
Discussion.
so any further discussion on the formation of the committee? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Great, that carries 6-0. So do you want to offer a motion to empower the chair to determine the charge of the advisory committee?
So moved.
So moved, perfect.
And the sunset.
And determine a sunset date
Yeah.
as amended, okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
I
She
think,
beat me. Go ahead.
Okay.
what?
She beat me.
I'll give it to Aaron, all right. Any further discussion on that? All right, all in favor? All opposed? It carries 6-0, thank you. Last little piece on this one is I'm expecting, I think this has historically been a single meeting, if I'm not mistaken.
No, it's usually, so the school committee member is usually the chair. We specifically appoint them as the
Yep.
chair, so they can coordinate everything. But there's usually a joining meeting, like, let's get to know each other and what we're trying to do. Then there's a public forum type meeting that says, give us your feedback. then there's a recommendation meeting, so there's usually three meetings.
Separate meetings, okay,
To make it happen, as that goes through.
So the recommendation meeting is separate from them coming here, or it's inclusive of?
It's their, they have to vote as a group about what they're
Okay.
voting on, to
Okay.
come and have a recommendation given to us.
Okay.
Or two recommendations in this particular case to give to us.
okay.
So it's usually three meetings.
So we don't,
They may choose to take the last two together.
It is now 7:45. We have concluded.
The future freshman night.
yeah. Oh, okay.
Future freshman night.
Oh,
It's the arts, the arts night, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so three meeting sequence then. Is there anybody who has, bandwidth and interest in being the school committee rep for this? Or the, school committee designee for this?
Let everybody raise your hand.
All right, we don't have to appoint tonight, so if anybody, changes their mind and gets a pulse of inspiration on this one, reach out to me, but otherwise, I'll get it covered.
Just as a logistical stuff, it may depend upon your sunset date and how long we have to execute this, right? So something for you to think about and come back to us and say, I'm gonna sunset this at the end of August or something. That means you have time in April, May, June, July to execute.
Yeah,
That might
Yep.
give people, like, there's no way I can do it now because the superintendent search is until August, until
Right.
April, sorry.
Right.
So, as a note, so that's in my head, and so something for you to think about as you think about the timeline.
yeah, that's fair. I think last time we did it over the summer, so it was a pretty extended timeline. It was, took 4 or 5 months, I think, to get through the process.
Yeah, in
So-
both cases, it came a little later in the year.
Yeah.
So it was like a May timeframe,
Yeah.
which it came a little later. So, which led to the summer being acceptable, but something
Yeah.
to think about.
Okay. All right, so let me, I'll chew on the charge and sort of the right timing, recognizing we are, we're pretty committed, some of us are pretty committed on the superintendent search for the next, few months. And so, I'll come back to everyone offline and see who might have availability, given a timeline we come up with here. Okay, that concludes that piece of business. Let's move to the FY '27 budget. I'll open the floor for any final discussion, questions, and then we can take a motion and vote this evening. Is there any discussion on the floor, or Phil, anything else that's come up in the last week or so that, is net new for us?
There were, the questions were put together, so the Q and A's out there for people to look at. There weren't that many questions. Again, because it's a roll forward budget, so to speak, so I think it's straightforward at this point. No changes. We made our editorial cleanups, and I may have had a boo-boo there or there. In terms of grammar, we fixed that as well.
Yeah, okay. I'll just share, Dr. Milichewski and I were talking this morning, and one of the things we were talking about was the, kind of the discomfort that some of us had with leveraging sort of the balance of school choice. As I've started to wrap my head around this, I think this is a reflection is that where we are from a sort of budget and override cycle perspective is we've got a few levers that'll allow us to maintain a level services budget, for another few years, maybe 2-3 years. This is the first one of those that we're pulling. And, it leaves us with special ed reserve fund, it leaves us with the prepays we do at the end of the year, probably a few other smaller things. But I think the fact that we're in a position where maintaining a level services budget requires us to make this choice on the school choice revolving fund is an indication that we're probably, closer to the end of this cycle of being able to support level services than we'd like to be. Probably still a few more years, but at least on the school side of the ledger, but that's kind of how I've rationalized it at this point.
You're far more optimistic than I am. I wouldn't have given us 2 to 3 years on the
Well,
budget.
I mean-
Not with negotiations and contracts being up next year, but
Yeah, well, negotiations, yeah, no, it's fair. It's fair. That's gonna, that's gonna be a challenge as well.
I think it's no small thing that we are able to have a level service budget. So I appreciate all the effort that went into having to think a little more creatively with this one about how to fund it. But I'm proud that we can offer a level service budget. I just hope anyone paying attention realizes that we are starting to dip into creative avenues to meet the budget needs to offer a level service budget. So if we're gonna continue to provide the same level of services and the quality in our schools, something's gonna have to give in the next few years, so.
Aaron, you'll know this off the top of your head. What was the year of the override that passed? Was it 17 or 18?
It passed in the spring of 18,
So we're at 8 years now, right? And they told us 3 to 5.
3 to 5.
So there are
No
some
one
critics out.
predicted the pandemic, though.
Well, there's some critics out there that think that certain money has not been managed well, and I think overall, the town does a really good job in extending, and we've done some very creative financing over some of the stuff we've done as well over the years. So, yeah, I echo your comments. Sean's comments, I understand, but I'm a little bit more leery of some of it. But I totally understand where he's going, and then we'll see what happens, yeah.
Okay. Anything else? All right, let's take a motion.
Motion to approve the FY '27 budget.
Second?
Second.
Seconded by Tom. Any final discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? All opposed, and it carries 6-0.
Thank you.
All right, let's move to the last couple of fee buckets that we had. Carla, maybe we'll just start with a motion on these.
Move to approve the extended day fee rates.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Laura. Dr. Milczewski, any commentary you want to make here? I know probably we're all familiar, but, oh, okay.
Which the recommendation is a 3% increase.
Yep. Okay. Any further discussion from the committee or questions?
Just, I mean, it's a minor nidge, I suppose. It is what it is in this regard. I think just, we should update the packet to include the materials that we have on this. It's not in the packet, so the public, as far as they know, we're voting on something that's not in the packet. And so we should make sure that we publish an updated packet that includes
The survey results, you mean?
the actual numbers, right? Where
Yep.
it doesn't actually say 3%.
Oh.
Back a couple of meetings.
Right, it was back
yeah.
a couple meetings ago.
Correct.
And so, you know, we should just make sure we
That's a good point.
update that appropriately.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, so it's as presented in our, what was that, January 8th meeting, I think? Yeah, but yeah, that's a good call. We can publish an updated packet that includes that information again. Okay, any final discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed, and it carries 6-0. Carla, could we take a motion on the last fee bucket here?
Move to approve athletics, drama, and band fee rates.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Dr. Milczewski, any commentary on this one?
Yeah, so just to kind of make sure that's clear, then that's the 10% athletic free increase that was presented on December, I think it was December 18th.
$10.
Was it before the holiday? Okay.
Say?
Yeah.
$10.
What'd I say, 10%? Oh, yeah, $10, on December 18th, 2025 meeting. I'd also like to share too on that, I shared with school committee, we've started to do a little bit of a dive into just some of the data the school committee wanted on cost per sport. Also, if you watch that meeting, you'll also see there's a lot of layers than even just some of the costs that sort of may appear sort of as we go through and look at, costs in the department. So I think our team would like to take a deeper dive, form a committee to look at sort of all those hidden costs, both on the athletics and the art side. So that way, if we're going, to do something different as a committee and as an administration, we truly understand sort of all of the different pieces and layers to it. So that's, if we move forward with the recommendation, we then will assemble that committee and try to get, hopefully something in front of you over the next couple of months to position the committee to be able to have the data they need to be able to make decisions or change the general structure.
I think that's a great idea.
There was a lot of different layers.
Yeah,
as we
there's
had
a
that
lot
conversation.
to it, and I think it's, it's probably not all stuff that any one person can rattle off, so.
Okay. Any further discussion? Oh, yeah, Dr. Corum, please.
Jeffrey Corum, Ridge Road. At the previous meeting, there was also a question about looking at the fee caps for students or families that had students in different, one in athletics, one in band, one in drama. I don't know if, is that going to be part of this future committee, or I didn't hear it in the description you just talked about digging into, but would you also consider that?
Yeah, I think that would be, thank you for bringing that back up. I think the plan is for that to be part of that sort of a larger analysis.
Yeah, I think one of the flavors of CAP we talked about is a family cap across categories of activities, right? And you know, I'd be curious to know just sort of what is the sort of, you know, full family burden, if you will, on, you know, on different activities before sort of understanding how to think about, you know, that kind of cap. So definitely makes sense to take that up again once we have that information. You're a little late to the party. We approved the committee, so we will be forming we will be forming an advisory committee to take up the naming for the press box. Yep. We're cruising tonight. Yeah. We're cruising tonight. Thank you.
Good to see you.
Do you want to mention, you'll follow up with them real quick on the naming?
Oh, yeah, and Pete, I'll follow up with you offline. We just want to confirm we have exactly what the ask is in terms of the name, because the discussion last time versus what we got in writing are maybe a little bit confusing, so I'll follow up with you offline on that. All right, thank you. Okay, that brings us to our last agenda item, which is,
Wait, we didn't vote.
oh, I'm sorry, that would be a useful thing to do.
We have a
I
second.
asked for final discussion, and there
Yeah.
was none. All in favor? And all opposed? Carries 6-0. Thank you. Okay. All right, so that brings us to our last agenda item, which is, you know, sort of at a macro level about the search process here, and there's a few things I'd like. It's a little hot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know this.
Andy, maybe you can turn it down a little bit? The mics are hot.
The monitor in the back? We're hearing ourselves. Oh, that's better.
thank
Way
you.
better, yeah. Thank you. Okay, so a few updates. So we've, since we last met, we held the community forum and the staff forum. I would say they were lightly attended. The staff forum, you know, I think we had maybe 8 or so staff members in addition to, you know, kind of those of us who were sort of, you know, part of the process. And then the community forum, we had, beyond staff members who attended, we had 3 parents attend, 2 of whom have applied to be on the screening committee as well. So, you know, we're taking it as an indication, and, you know, I think this came out in the discussion as well, that generally speaking, there's not a ton of anxiety about where the district is right now, that people feel pretty good about how things are trending, and so there's just not a ton of energy around, you know, I have to get my voice heard and drive some change in this decision. And so, you know, I'm taking that from sort of the interest level, but I'm also taking that from what the actual discussion was in the room. And, you know, one of the interesting themes, and Olivia's raw notes are in the version of the packet that was distributed today. Sorry for the updates on that, but we had the community forum literally last night. So so her raw notes are in there, but, you know, one of the big themes really was, particularly in the staff forum, was, you know, Dr. Milichewski has built such a sense of ownership in the direction the district is headed and some of the initiatives that we have underway and the elements of the district strategic plan, that the staff feel really invested in having the opportunity to carry on that work. And so one of the things that I think we need to think about is, how do we screen for a candidate who's going to be sort of, you know, self-confident enough to come into this and not feel like they need to, like, put their stamp on things and sort of, you know, rip the Band-Aid off and, you know, really make it their district and sort of, reshape the district in their image, so to speak. And so, you know, I think we tried to weave that into some of the role description and some of the sort of marketing brochure, you know, information that's in the packet as well. But that was one of the, you know, interesting themes that came out. Certainly themes around prioritizing, collaboration, communication, both being a proactive sort of listener, seeking out new voices. I think one of the things that several of the parents, who were on last night sort of indicated is they didn't, necessarily feel like they would have had an opportunity to have a voice in the past and, through whatever mechanism, felt pulled in by Dr. Milichewski and had opportunities to, to get involved and have their voice heard. And so we certainly want to see some of that preserved and prioritized. From a skills and capabilities and qualifications background, the staff were adamant that, a good blend of classroom experience, along with administrative experience, whether that's at the building level or at the district level is I think, important to that group. Certainly, some familiarity with school building projects. It's probably a unicorn to expect to find somebody who's deeply embedded or deeply rooted in MSBA as well. But certainly somebody that has familiarity with school building projects, I think, is important.
It is now 8 o'clock, and we have concluded our second session. Please move on to the third and final location. Again, that is please move on to the final location.
I'm supposed to go.
Sounds like we've got 15 minutes to get through this agenda. I would say nothing terribly surprising. I think it all was probably very consistent with what we would expect and probably what the sentiment of this committee would be as well. But we did try to reflect some of that specifically in the materials. Next steps, the next big sort of milestones, we're expecting to post the role next week. It'll be open until March 1st, so it's just right around a 4-week timeframe for the role to be posted. And then the screening committee sort of orientation is February 24th, I believe. So once we get, through this milestone this week of getting the description buttoned up and getting the role posted, we'll have a little bit of a quiet period where we can get organized and ready to actually operate, operate the screening committee, proactively prepare communications to candidates to tell them everything they need to know about recruiting folks that may support, may be part of a site visit and that sort of thing. So, certainly lots of work to do, but the timeline will be a little bit more relaxed once we hit this milestone of getting the role posted. So that's the general update of where we are. A few things I want to, step you through and ask the committee to weigh in on and in a couple cases formally vote tonight. One is the posting itself and some of the content in the posting. 2 is the salary range, which traditionally is included in these postings. And then 3rd is take you through what the sort of volunteer group looked like from a screening committee perspective. Share with you my recommendation for who we selected the screening committee, and I would like to have the committee formally vote to formally approve that piece. That piece and the salary are the 2 things that I'm looking for sort of formal approval on this evening. So let's start with the posting itself. In the packet are 2 versions of 2 different documents. The shorter document, that's a little bit more sort of formal, sort of formally structured is the actual content of the job posting that would be posted on School Spring that an applicant would see as they were, kind of initiating the application process. The reason you're going to see 2 versions are we created a first draft which was really a direct emulation of what you see in sort of the standard MASC postings. So the components and the sequencing and, sort of the layout were very much emulating that. The second version was one which Michelle, and actually I have the order backwards. The first one you're going to see is the one that Michelle came up with. But the second one we came up with was Michelle's pass at it, which was intended to more closely mirror how she typically writes role descriptions and materials in support of the roles that we have in the district. She leveraged a lot of the same language and certainly the same qualifications and criteria that we'd suggested, but wrote the description in a way that's sort of more consistent with how the district typically prepares role descriptions. We and I specifically have lauded Michelle in the past for bringing in a semblance of sort of HR professionalism to the way that the district runs its HR function, and I think her version of that, probably is I would say, a more modern, more professional view of what a role description, could look like versus the more traditional MASC view. So I don't know if there's anything in particular that I want folks to look at. I'd just maybe give you a minute to digest and see if there's anything that catches your eye about, one version or the other. The other thing that you're going to see, the more sort of marketing-oriented one is what traditionally is called the brochure in support of the role. Again, the second one in there is the sort of MASC modeled one. It also closely mirrors the one that we published back in 2021 when we last went through a search. It's got a little bit more sort of flowery language around the town and the opportunity. It leverages some of the content from the town website. That's why is Reading such a great place to live, that sort of thing. And then again, the version that actually appears first in the packet is the, I'll say, more streamlined, little more to-the-point version that Michelle created. Again, leveraging a lot of the same, mostly the same content, but a little bit more streamlined. So let me pause there, give folks a minute to digest. I know you only all received this afternoon, but if there's anything that sticks out to you, I'd love to take your feedback. We also don't have to finalize this. I've got really the weekend to get this finalized. So, if folks have thoughts after this evening that you want to share with me, I can work with Michelle and Olivia, and we can incorporate that before we actually do the posting. Please.
It's funny that you clarified that the second one was the more modeled after Mask, because I read it and I was like, flowery was the word that came out. I was like, whoa, I love Reading. I love Reading. It's been my home for a long time, but some of the language, I was like, what are we doing here?
In the second one?
In the second one.
This all appeared in our brochure last time.
I know.
Reading's known as a great place to live. That was on page 1 of the brochure last time.
It got him, so why did you
It's all about the flowery for Tom.
I will say, you'll see, I did, I took some artistic license and included, the approval of the Killam School as like, so there's some updates to it, but it, broadly speaking, is very much modeled after the same content we used back then, and the same content Mask still uses in their brochures.
Well, I liked the first one better overall, but.
Can I jump in, Jen?
Yeah, please.
I would agree with that too, because I also think that any candidate worth interviewing will do their homework and will dig in on the details and understand who's on the school committee and what the community is about and what's going on versus serving that up to them in every detail. So I kind of like the more streamlined. The other thing that, and just throwing it out there under qualifications, where we talk about years of experience, my preference in general is to include also a minimum number of any kind of leadership type thing. So the progressively responsible administrative leadership, we don't have a number of years of experience there. So certainly that'd be for the committee to look at, but I do think it's sometimes helpful to say a minimum of, including a minimum of 5 years progressive administrative leadership or whatever that is.
Can I offer a counterpoint to that?
Sure.
2 things. One is, depending on what number we came up with, we hired a superintendent who might have fallen short of certain thresholds that we might have put in place, depending on how you define that leadership experience. And then the second thing is, one of the things that's been hammered into me by the talent acquisition professionals in my firm is, you typically tend to see women in particular, underrepresented when, because they'll look at a criteria and say, well, if I don't meet that to the letter, it's not worth me applying. And so you may have somebody who's really attractive on every other dimension, but opts not to apply. And I'd rather, my bias would be towards, articulating to the screening committee, via the two of you that are going to participate on the screening committee, that there's probably a minimum threshold we'd be comfortable with, but not using it at this point in the process.
Can I counterpoint that?
Please, of course.
So I think the other two things, as somebody who has some experience in this realm lately,
I thought you might.
I would say, maybe you could caveat it as preferred versus like required, kind of preferred also levels of experience. I also personally am really I like the job descriptions that also say, we know not everybody's going to check all these boxes or fill all these buckets. We welcome, diverse candidates to come who think they, there's some, I'll try to find a couple examples, but it kind of includes a caveat at the end of like, we value diversity and experience over these things that we've bulleted above. If you feel like you are really, bring a lot to the table, we welcome you to apply and are excited to learn more about you.
I agree with that, and I think that that actually really says a lot about what we're coming from, where we're coming from on our end as well, that we're not just interested in the numbers, but that we're interested in finding the person who's the right fit. And so I think if we emphasize that we're approaching it holistically and that, we're not going to be, if you don't meet an exact minimum threshold for one of those bullet points, we're not going to get caught up on that, I think is a very attractive position to be coming in, for an applicant to be coming into.
I mean, as I recall from last time, it's a position that attracts people from different levels and different experience. It's not necessarily what you think, or what you think isn't necessarily going to be the best fit. Someone might currently be a superintendent, but then it begs the question of, well, why are they leaving? Someone might have only been in leadership a little while, but maybe they have all this other experience that, we feel is going to be a great fit. So I don't want to limit us in that regard, but I like that language.
I'll try to find some examples, I'll send it to you.
I'm gonna, I guess, be a voice of a slight dissent, maybe more agreement with Sean in that I would keep it simple, stupid, right? I think the KISS principle can apply, and I think as it's written is from a experience perspective, is what got us what we have, right? And if we had tried to do certain other things, it would have been, maybe limiting is the right word, maybe not limiting, but I also, all that other language that's at every posting on LinkedIn right now is just, for me, it's kind of annoying. Not everybody is kind of annoying. I know it can open the door for other people and they may feel more welcome by it, but I just want to be cautious that we don't overdo it. Like, we're slimming down. I agree with Aaron that I like the shorter one better, right? So if we're slimming down and then we're adding a bunch of other stuff at the end, it just seems like it could be distracting overall. So I like the shorter one. I like the progressive experience, and it allows the screening committee to value that progressive experience and look at it and say, okay, based on everything we've done, and that's the charge that the chair would generally give them, we want you to look at the holistic candidate, right? And then, whatever we have as our normal stamp at the end of everything else that Michelle does, then I'm comfortable with that. And I don't think we need to over-engineer it when we're not the HR professionals, per se. The one thing I would ask or say that I would think I want to think about, and whether people would agree or not is open for questions. But I think we've almost simplified our commitment to equity too much. I would actually prefer to keep our all means all in that paragraph. That's a little bit longer paragraph than the 2 sentences that are there in the shortened version. But we spent a lot of time building that up, and that has been our foundation for a lot of what we've done over the last 5 years. And leaving that out of this, to me, seems like we're missing something. So I think that's my one feedback here, is that the shorter version, if we could pull back the all means all version of equity, as opposed to just our commitment to equity is these 2 sentences, I think it would be more meaningful personally.
Which page and version are you looking at?
So if I'm on
About the school district.
the shorter version, it says our commitment to equity is at the bottom of or the top of the second page, I think, of the school profile. In the longer version, it's indented in the about our school district. And if you pull that paragraph up to the equity sentence of the shorter version, it still fits the 2 pages, but it is our definition of what we mean by equity.
So you're saying you prefer the shorter version, but let's pull in the full equity statement?
Yeah.
Is that what I'm hearing? Okay.
We were very purposeful with the language of that equity
Yeah.
statement.
Yep.
Very
Sure.
purposeful.
And that was a very collaborative process.
Yeah, I think, So, you know, I'm certainly hearing the support for the slimmer version. So maybe Michelle and I can work to sort of thread the needle here a little bit, because what gets lost is there were some narrative elements in the longer version that were very intentional, right? You know, it was demonstrating we're maybe not unique, but we're unusual in having that degree of collaboration with the teachers union and, or, you know, with the RTA and the, you know, the highly functioning school committee, and like some of those things they're specifically called out in the longer version, do get lost in the shorter one. So, you know, point taken, yeah.
I do really, applicants should understand that Reading is operating from a position of strength. I love that sentence. I think that's in the longer one, but I don't know if it's in the,
It's not.
yeah.
That's another one of my narrative choices, I would say.
Yeah, I love that. I read it and it jumped out at me because I was like, yes, we are. Like, that's important to get across.
Okay.
You know, and some of what comes after it. But, you know. Yeah, but that message I do think is important. I think the equity statement's important. I agree with that.
Okay. Other thoughts?
You want to talk about compensation now?
Do you want to do
You know, I mean, any other thoughts generally on
the job description?
the job description or the, you know, sort of the content and the marketing materials? And then we'll move to those two pieces.
I guess one other maybe controversial one, but when I think about what actually has driven our district forward so much, would be the order of the selection criteria might be to adjust collaboration, communication, and establishing trust above demonstrated commitment, right? Because those set the foundation for the demonstrated commitment to equity. I mean, it's kind of debatable, but collaboration and communication has driven a lot of what we've been able to do, and the outcome has been equity, inclusion, and excellence in outcomes, in high outcomes. Trust has been part of that as well, and the outcome has been that we've been able to get high returns. So, I mean, Tom's looking at me sideways, so he may think it's otherwise, right? But I feel like, to me, and even in some of the feedback we got from the staff, it's like the collaboration, the communication, the leadership are important and critical to us. So oftentimes what you put first is what you value most. And while I totally, you know, value the outcomes and the inclusion and equity, I think what drives our capability and drives our success so far has been those other two criteria.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I think that was probably a nod by Michelle to taking out the fullness of the equity statement, is, you know, like prioritizing it or featuring, you know, equity and outcomes for all, you know, positive outcomes for all of our students and that kind of thing there. I think it's a fair point, and we'll work with her if we're going to pull the equity statement back in. I think there's some opportunity.
I don't want to take out the, you know, high performing and all that stuff.
No, absolutely.
Sometimes it's just an order of execution.
Yep. Okay.
I do like that the first statement, though, references students.
Students are important, yep.
A little bit.
It is the center of what we do, but the how we do it is
Yeah, I
just-
don't know. It's totally 6 on one, half a dozen on the other, whether you swap those sentences, so.
All right. Well, Michelle and I will arm wrestle over that one. We'll figure it out. But I hear the feedback. Okay, so let's talk salary range. So.
No,
Oh,
let's
yeah.
do a motion.
Oh, sure.
Move to approve the superintendent job description.
It's going to probably see some updates, and we don't formally need to approve this, so let's
You good?
let's pass on that one,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Not seconded.
Nope, it's not seconded.
No second on that
Did
one.
you see that this is not lined up, by the way, right? The key district leadership
I
roles
did,
on
yeah.
that-
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
just on that
Yeah,
one,
no,
it's lined
well,
up
yeah,
on the
we've
other
got-
one.
we've got some cleanup to do. So, okay, so let's talk salary. So rationale here, the sort of typical practice seems to be providing a range that usually has an upper and lower bounds about $20,000 apart. almost every superintendent, I shouldn't say almost every, the majority of superintendent postings do include them, but there are certainly some that don't include them and just say something more generic about, you know, salaries commensurate with experience and, you know, negotiable, something to that effect. You know, I think, given that we've, you know, made a healthy investment in our superintendent salary position over the last couple of years, and currently in a position where I think we're quite competitive, I think offering a range where the top end of that range is actually just slightly below where Dr. Milichewski currently is, puts us in a position to have this be really appealing, number one. Some of the active searches, and some of these are in smaller towns, you know, a little further from Boston, but some of the active searches are more in the 170 to 190, 180 to 200 range. So this will be an appealing range, number one. Number two, you know, if we get a candidate who is a true unicorn and, you know, checks all the boxes, we've got a top end here that's quite competitive. And number three, you know, we probably have a little bit of wiggle room if necessary on top of that without, you know, sort of damaging our budget position overall. So that was the rationale for this range, but I'm very open to any thoughts that folks have, or whether you want to include one or not. Yes, sir.
I think the rationale makes total sense. I think by law, we have to include it now. There's the Massachusetts transparency law is enacted as of the fall.
I should contact the Hopedale schools, because, yeah, okay.
Pretty sure I'm pretty sure it was effective in the fall.
I think you might be right, yeah. Yeah.
So I think we have to. But I think the rationale around the range makes sense to me.
I was just going to widen the range a little bit on the short side and maybe even a little bit on the long side, right? It's entirely possible we come up with a unicorn, but yet that unicorn is not developed yet and needs time to prove themselves appropriately. And so we might want to make sure we're fiscally responsible on that side too, where 200,000 might be a great starting point for that person. And so, you know, while we can go lower than what we're offering, it would seem silly to say, I'm going to go 220, but I'm going to only offer you 200 because of your experience. So I think I'd like to go and say 200 is the starter instead of 220. And if they warrant 220, great. If they warrant 240, great, whatever. But I don't want to presuppose something as an outcome by boxing us into a lower range of 220. That's one side of it. The other side of it, you know, well, yes, we know where he is now. It's entirely possible we hit another grand slam and it's somebody with more experience and they're still as great a communicator and they're still as great a collaborator and they have execution that they've proven over time and they come with great references even from their existing district, and you know, maybe it's 250 instead of 240. So I was suggesting more, or thinking more of a 200 to 250 range. It gives us a little bit more flexibility on the short side and a little bit more on the high side without, to your point, really damaging the long-term, you know, viability. Because he likely would have been in the 250 range, give or take, by the end of the school year. So I don't think that's a far reach from where he is right now. And so that's where I'm saying 200, 250 is a little bit better range for me.
I'm not uncomfortable with the top end adjustment, because that's a good point. I mean, you know, an end of the year increment would get him into the upper 240s, you know, at a minimum anyway. So that part makes sense to me. The low end piece of it, I don't have the numbers. I don't have the numbers in front of me. But my recollection when we looked at it the last time that we negotiated a contract, I think 200 would put us, you know, around the 10th percentile of our peer group. I worry that providing a range that's both that wide and starts, you know, on the lower end of what sort of, you know, the prevailing superintendent contracts are today, I worry that that might actually be a turnoff to candidates who would say, am I going to go through this whole process and they're going to try to, you know, lowball me and get me at the bottom of this range?
I would argue the opposite of that is that, if they're the candidate and they're that good, we'll find a way, right? But at the same time, if they're coming in and they're just an HGS, not just, but they have just graduated from one of the prevailing schools for superintendents, you know, Vanderbilt, HGS, whatever, and they have, let's just take Tom's profile, right? If you have another Tom, you know, but 6 years younger with a similar background, is that maybe with inflation from there, it would warrant 220, maybe not. But if we look at the experience of that pool you're talking about, many of them have been superintendents for a long time. And new hire superintendents weren't hitting the middle to the high range of that necessarily, that didn't have experience. So I hear you. I don't wanna negatively influence the pool, but at the same time, I don't wanna box us into saying we must go to 220 if the person's experience does not yet warrant 220.
Okay. Thoughts others have?
Yeah. Go ahead, Carl.
Do we need a range, or can we just say 200
So
plus?
you can say anticipated. So you just have to put a range out there. You could say the anticipated, that was gonna be my comment. We don't have to say it is this.
Yeah.
We can say we anticipate the pay range will be between these, and then there's usually a caveat of like, dependent upon, qualifications of the preferred candidate, et cetera.
I think also, Tom came on board, we were all hopeful, but he had to prove himself, right? And he proved himself, and he, we worked to get him where he needed to be. I would lower, I don't know, I would lower the range. I feel like I would lower the range. I don't mind having a very broad range, like Tom said, 200 to 250, but I wouldn't even go above 240. I mean, if somebody is going to hit it out of the park, we would go above, right? Nothing is locking us into that.
It's easier to go above than it is to go below.
Right.
You can't pose to 220 and then offer somebody 200.
Right.
Right?
I would
What
start
about
at,
210?
Go, sorry, I didn't
about
mean to cut you
210?
off. Further bottom?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a compromise, and if people would get comfortable with that, I think it needs to be a little wider as a possibility, and I think it needs to have a lower level, whether it's 200, 210. I'd prefer 200, but if we can compromise at 210, then I'm better there than I was at 220.
yeah. It seemed high to me. That's just my reaction. And I think a $50,000, I wouldn't even, I would do 200 to 240 as the range, if I had to make a decision right now.
I'm trying to wrap I'm going back to the process last time. I'm trying to wrap my head around the kind of candidate that I would be like, this is our person, we're gonna offer you 200. I just can't, I have a hard time thinking that I'm hoping we're equally as excited about this person, because I was so excited when we hired Tom.
Yeah.
And so optimistic. And I thought we found a unicorn. I mean, I used that over and over, this guy's a unicorn. So to me, if we find another unicorn or a shiny horse,
A Pegasus. Remember the Pegasus.
With that
then I can't imagine going low. I don't know. I guess that's what, I understand what you're saying, but I'm also thinking ultimately, we're picking the best of hopefully a well-qualified pool of candidates.
Absolutely, we are, right? But let's not, we hit it out of the park, and Tom delivered, right? But let's back up the truck a little bit, right? What experience did Tom have? He had great experiences as a principal. He had gone through a superintendency training class. He had an associate superintendency and navigated a complex thing with COVID and health, related stuff, and he had teaching experience. But there was nothing that said for sure, right, that he was going to be who he has turned out to be,
Well,
right?
I don't know that we're gonna get that from anyone.
Well, I know, but at
mean,
the same time, so that, to that point, I think we just have to figure out, would we, again, let's take Tom's profile again, right? I go back, I think we started you right around 195 or 200 or something like that?
190.
190, right? Yeah, and it's 6 years later, right? So it's a different year, and inflation's happened and whatnot, and other things have happened around the state. But at the same time, if you were to take that profile now, okay, maybe it's 205, maybe it's 210, but you're not gonna offer them 230 or 240 out of the gate unless you're in a competitive bidding situation, right? Which is a whole different dynamic, and there is a bit of a dynamic that we have to worry about even here on the North Shore, so I'm fully acknowledging that, right? But at the same time, I think we have to give ourselves flexibility on the low side, just in case, right? You can't say 220 and then offer 210. You can say 200 and offer 210, or offer 215, or offer 220, right? You have the flexibility to go above your low number. You don't have flexibility to go below your low number. And so that's why I think the low number needs to be the 200 number. And that's still, to Sean's point, it's more competitive than what's being posted, 170, 190, et cetera. 200 is above those numbers.
Well, these were, again, small districts in more rural
Who's
communities.
looking near us?
Andover.
Andover will be.
And Tewksbury.
And what's Andover offering?
I don't know, but their current superintendent was relatively close to Dr. Milichewski, so.
And where'd you say, Tewksbury?
Are they?
Right, Tewksbury,
Yes.
yeah, Tewksbury and Andover.
And neither one of them is us,
No.
frankly. Right? I
No,
mean, just,
but-
let's, and that's not just that's just not ego from our perspectives, but they both have had relatively significant challenges with their unions, with their school committees, et cetera, over the recent past. We don't. So you want to walk into one with a nightmare, or do you want to walk into one that's in good shape, right? I mean, I don't want to be mean to people, but it's a reality.
I think this was the commercial that goes along with the ad. Lightning is gonna.
I think my only reaction to the 200 is seeing that low range gonna turn anyone off? So if we don't think putting a lower range is a deterrent, then I don't have a problem
I don't think it's a
putting a
deterrent.
wider range.
I don't think it's, personally, I don't think it's a deterrent. I mean, when I look at postings and whatnot, you see the low and you see the high, and you say, well, I'm gonna be for the high.
Okay.
Right? I'm not worried about the low because I know what my skill set and my experience is, and I'm gonna go for the high, right? So that's me, but other people can have a different opinion, obviously. The high performers that we're looking for are not gonna be worried about the low, in my mind, but yet it does open up the capability that somebody who's just coming out of school can say, well, I could probably do that. To me, that's where my head is. Don wants to speak, so.
No, I just have, one comment on the high end too, is I do think if it's a realistic possibility that you would, that the committee would go up for someone with a certain level of experience. Someone may read the profile and say, well, 240, if they've already sort of capped that that's the top that they're seeing that the committee would go, where I'm hearing that that's not necessarily the case of what would happen in reality. I think if you're trying to cast a wide net and you're trying to pull some people who maybe are probably, in that range already, I don't know why you would keep that chip in your back pocket and say, well, we get there, then we would move it, instead of trying to bring them in earlier in the process. And just talking to a couple candidates the last couple of years who have toyed with the idea of moving across districts, they're like, well, I saw the posting, it only would be a $10,000 jump, and then it wouldn't be worth it for me to make it. So I do think if it seems like that's, given what's probably in the budget of rolling forward my salary times a 3% increase or a 2.5% increase, I think that if that's a possibility, I don't know why you would hold that back when you're trying to cast a wide net early on.
That's really helpful feedback.
So what would you put, Don?
I would go to the high end. I would go up to what has been discussed, and whether or not the committee goes that high, that's up to the committee, but I would think that would make you really, really competitive with some of the other searches that are ongoing, and it keeps you right with what's budgeted in the budget that was just approved. So I think there's, I don't know, and I think on the back end, the low end, I defer to you on that. I think they're all reasonable perspectives. I just think the high end is important to attract the kind of candidates that I think,
You can possibly pull somebody in.
yeah,
And it's not unusual to have a $50,000
No.
range?
Not at all.
Okay.
no,
I see $100,000 ranges out there.
correct, I do too.
So, thank you, I appreciate that. I can certainly, 250 at the top end, we do have the qualifier, it's subject to experience and qualifications, right? So, I think a realistic candidate is going to understand if they're coming in never having served as a superintendent or with, limited central office experience or what have you, that they're not going to expect to top out in that range, right? So I'm certainly comfortable going higher. On the lower end, 200 still doesn't make sense to me because, and Tom, you raised it, which is, he came in at 190, we felt really good about him and wanted to get him, but again, the experience was not as much as you might, see in some other candidates, right? And so, if I just roll that forward 5 years, 190 to 210 feels like a more logical, sort of floor to me. So, my maybe compromise would offer, just for discussion, just to keep the discussion moving forward here is we adjust it to 210 to 250. That's the range.
I would support that.
I'm more comfortable with that than I am where it is, so if that's what we get, that's what we get, right?
I still like the 200 to 250. I think that's a nice broad range.
It's my preference as well.
Yeah.
Right? If I,
But I'm not
if
gonna-
I were voting right now, and it was ranked choice voting, that would be my number one preference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
I think, you know, when I see a role posted and the range is too wide, it's like, you don't actually have a view of what this role is worth. You're gonna offer me the least you think I'll take it, the least that you think I'll take. That's how I perceive it personally when I look at roles that are posted.
I guess we're different, right? I mean, that's, I see what you're saying.
Well, no,
There's-
no,
there's
I'm not
no
different in
market
thinking
in
like, no, I
this
deserve the
space,
top
right?
end of that range.
Right?
I agree with you there. No, but I think that that's the orientation of the hiring, you know, the hiring firm is they're providing this broad range because they, you know, want to keep this low floor there so they have a place to start that, you know, technically was in the range, and they're going to see what they can get away with getting you to accept. I think that can be perceived, there's a risk that gets perceived negatively as well, you know, having too broad a range.
But I think if they do their homework and see what we've done for Tom, that should go away,
Yeah,
right?
perform, you'll be rewarded.
Yeah.
I know, but now I'm also thinking if we start at 200, then it feels more. I don't think we're realistically going to be offering anyone 200. So it feels more like, oh, we've upped from the bottom of our range when we offer something above it.
Our unicorn is going to have watched this meeting. It's going to know that we're not actually serious about 200 if that's where we go. Yeah.
It depends, again, it depends on the qualifications. I might be serious about 200, depending on the qualifications. Right? I mean, that's the whole purpose of it, is to open up the qualification range for people who may not have as much experience, and on the side that has experience and has delivered, right? You're giving yourself the ability to then find the best candidate across both sides of that range, right? We probably, you know, fair, unfair, if we had looked at some of the other candidates at the time, we probably wouldn't have gotten them at the rate we got Tom at the time. But I think we were still confident that Tom's rate was the right rate for him and the right rate for Reading, and he was the right choice for Reading, right? So it allowed us the flexibility to find the right candidate at the right price for Reading. And this allows us to find the right candidate at the right price for Reading. And if the right candidate, then the right price for that candidate is 200, great, right? If the right candidate is 250, great, or somewhere in between. You know, we have to consider all those factors when we put out the offer, as things go. Flexibility for us is, in my mind, is huge as we look at this. And I don't think 50,000 is a big problem from a range perspective.
I'm convinced. You've convinced me.
Can I make a motion?
I'll swing over.
I'm going to make one more argument.
Make the motion, Carl.
Quick, let me make the motion.
FY '25 numbers among our FinCom peer communities, Canton is the lowest at 210, North Reading's 214,606, and this is FY '25, so this is 2 fiscal years in advance. Dedham with a first-year superintendent was at 215, Natick with a first-year superintendent was 235. The realistic range among our peer communities is, you know, sort of squarely in that 220 to 245, 250 range.
We don't know from that if it was their first year as a superintendent, period, or the first year in that district.
I just, you know, I think this is a competitive enough market. If we get a candidate that we are, you know, as excited about as we'd all like to be, to the point that we want to extend this person an offer, I find it hard to believe they're not going to have other opportunities. And I think there's risk. I think there's risk in going too low.
Someone won't apply?
Yes.
Okay.
Won't apply or won't prioritize this opportunity versus other ones they might be looking at.
I think that risk is relatively easily managed by the person on the right-hand side of the table, who would be probably being asked questions about the district and the process, and can answer how we execute and how we offer. I think that's pretty easily addressed. If they're going to not even apply without even investigating, they're probably not the right person for the job in the first place.
Well, yeah, but what's he gonna tell them? Yeah, they said the range is 200 to 250,
No,
but
they're not gonna ask that. He's gonna say that, but he's gonna talk about the rest of it. He's gonna talk about the collaborative nature of us. He's gonna talk about the union stuff. He's gonna talk about Reading as a town. He's gonna talk about a lot of different things that make us this brochure that makes us who we are, right? I don't think we should go in with a fear base. I think we should go in with a strength base. And if we go into the fear base, then we've lost already. We have to go in with a strength base. We are who we are. And I think we have a lot to talk about here. We're in a very different spot than we were 6 years ago, right? I might have gone the other way 6 years ago to say, you know what, we have to put out a big number because we're in a bad shape. We're not there now. But I still think this gives us the capability to bring in a really, really good, strong person who's done it for multiple years at the top range. And it gives us, again, that capability for someone who has not yet done it, but we still see amazing potential for on the short range. I see no negatives in the 200 to 250 range.
yeah, I mean, if you're all there, I'm just one vote. The negative is the perception that we don't understand the market for superintendents, because we're offering a range that bottoms out 10,000 below any peer community. So, I mean, that's the risk, is that we create a perception that, you know, even if the person loves the district, wants to be here, this is their first choice among whatever opportunities they have, you know, some fear that this could be a tough negotiation if they're not, you know, the unicorn that checks all the boxes and has all the experience points and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, I'm just one vote, but I do think, I don't agree that there's no risk to going too low in the range. So.
It's a hard one.
It is.
This is why we actually work well as a group.
So you both make excellent points.
We listen to each other,
Yeah.
we consider it, and ultimately we vote and we move forward as a group.
Are you watching, candidates?
Point them to the 45-minute conversation.
You put a link to this meeting in the brochure.
Salary range, watch video.
I will, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, to my earlier point about not putting too much into the brochure because we want people to come to the table who've done their homework and their research, I do think your point is valid, Sean, that anybody who has done their actual research will know what the other communities and where salaries are at. So I do see that. I think that's an important consideration.
I mean, it's interesting because at two different numbers, you're saying the same thing, sort of. Like, you're saying this might turn someone off by going too low. You're saying we open the door to all levels of experience by setting it lower. So we want the same thing. We want as many people as possible with a wide range of experience to apply and prove themselves. The question is either approach going to discourage someone from applying outright?
I think the higher end the higher end brings in a certain level of person, but I also think the lower end is bringing in that person who is not experienced, but may be really good, and, you know, for your first job as a superintendent to come in and be making $200,000, and then, okay, prove yourself, you know? Like, we took a chance with Tom, we were all hopeful, but it was, okay, prove yourself. And then when he started, he was rewarded because he deserved it. Like, I think that's, I think that's a reasonable approach, and I think that's a reasonable way to move forward.
I don't disagree with that, but
Yeah.
I do think that 200 is not the 2026 equivalent of 190 in 2021.
It sounds like everybody's comfortable with 250 as the top end, and so the real discussion here is 200 versus 210, which is, $10,000 is a lot of money, but also not a lot of money. And so I guess the question is the risk of what Sean's talking about with the perception, and seeming like we're lowballing it to potential candidates who have done their research, is the risk of driving them away worth saving $10,000?
Or is the other side of it, opening the door for other people.
Right.
Worth $10,000. I mean, just real quick, I just quickly pulled up the calculator, right? If we had been not a rewarder of performance, and we didn't have a track record of that, Tom's salary would be approximately $20,000 less than it is now, just on a 3% roll forward every year from when he was. Right? So part of the process is, again, prove yourself, and then you will be rewarded, and we have a track record of rewarding performance. But at the same time, if they don't prove themselves, we don't want to be stuck with an albatross of a contract of somebody who can't execute. So we have to be conscious of both sides of the possibilities as well. Now, to Laura's point, 210, 200, in the grand scheme of things, is it a big difference in that regard? No, but I still think we open up our opportunities for more candidates with 200, and the highly qualified candidate who knows what they're worth won't have a problem with 200 because they're looking at the 250, or they're thinking, okay, I'm easily 230, 240 in this range. I know what I'm worth, and that'll be part of the negotiation. That's my perspective, but again, let's put a motion on the table and we can vote it, whether it's 210 to 250 or 200 to 250, we can work our way from there.
Dealer's choice.
I motion to modify the superintendent's salary range from $200,000 to $250,000.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? All opposed?
Sorry, Charlie.
All right, 200 to 250 it is. Okay. Okay, last item here, let me share.
It's not in here, right?
It's not in there. It was a little bit of a working document, so I was hesitant to
You
share
just
it.
finished it 2 minutes ago.
Not 2 minutes ago.
That Tom guy, I'm taking him off the committee.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was waiting to see. Let's see. Oh, hold on. I have to go to my system settings to share. Bear with me a second here. Okay. All right, let's try this again. Is this gonna work? Oh, you guys can't read that.
I was saying, you expect us to.
Okay, let me zoom in.
Guessing wildly.
Go off your shoulder here.
Because,
Let me zoom in. Hold on, sorry. Okay. Is that starting to become legible?
I'm just gonna lean this way.
Like an eye
You can look
exam
on my
there,
screen.
Sean.
That works. Okay. So we identified a committee makeup of 17 individuals. It was 2 school committee members, 3 central office or non-unit leaders, with at least 2 of those being direct reports to the superintendent, so that's 5. 5 staff, including representation from each level. 5 parents, including representation across levels, but also CPAC and MECO. And then town manager designee, and then police chief, SRO, or designee. So that's the 17. We have our 2 school committee members, Tom and Laura, so that was kind of the easy one. This list includes everybody who volunteered, and I want to talk through sort of what I'm recommending, which are the ones in bold here.
Okay.
And I'll talk through kind of why we landed here. So we only had 3 parents volunteer for the screening committee. None of those 3 parents at least sort of self-identified that they're involved in CPAC. I did reach out, to CPAC after our last meeting, reach out to them to let them know that hey, you know, we were hopeful to have a parent who's actively involved in CPAC. If you can reach out to your membership. I didn't hear back from them until last night, and then I didn't hear anything from them again today. So I don't, it doesn't look like they, you know, they have somebody who's, you know, ready and can commit. So one of the things that you'll see here is I prioritized staff members who, a couple staff members who have special education experience to, you know, it's not the same, certainly not the same as having a parent, you know, parent in the district, but that was one of the things that, you know, I tried to do to sort of, you know, balance that, given that we didn't have somebody raise their hand from a CPAC perspective. There also wasn't anybody, there weren't any METCO family members or parents that volunteered as well. Fortunately, Cindy did, you know, did volunteer, so I immediately sort of prioritized her as one of the staff members, you know, to have at least some representation of the METCO program, in that regard. From a central office perspective, again, initially we tagged having 3. The volunteers there were Sarah Hardy, Lindsay Fulton, Alyssa Gallegos, Nicole Schwartz, Mary Julian, and Aaron Birchill. I thought, you know, Sarah made all the sense in the world. I think having, you know, one of his directs who sits in the central office every day, or one of the new superintendent's directs, I should say, who sits in the office every day, be involved in this process and ultimately, you know, hopefully be a champion for this new person coming in would be really valuable. Also value, you know, Dr. Hardy's, you know, perspective generally. We had 3 elementary school principals apply. Alyssa Gallegos does have some scheduling conflicts, and I literally flipped a coin between Lindsay and Nicole for another slot there. Mary Juliana and Aaron Birchill, you know, were the other ones, again, just to sort of represent a diversity of different types of staff and different types of roles. So the reason you see 4 here is because with only 3 parents volunteering, we had 2 more slots to allocate. And so what I did in this pass was to allocate one of those to admin and then one of those to an additional teacher or an additional staff position. On the staff front, you know, I thought Jess Bailey, who, you know, certainly has very proactively expressed her interest, and obviously in her role as the RTA president is a key, you know, key stakeholder and a key partner for any incoming superintendent. So that was, you know, I think one of the first ones that I flagged. Susie Carroll was the sole middle school staff member who volunteered, so that was, you know, another one right off the bat. I already talked about, you know, Cindy and why I thought Cindy was, you know, critical to have. Jennifer Delaney was the only person from the Paraeducators Union who volunteered, so I prioritized her as well. And then, you know, essentially what we were left with at that point was a bunch of volunteers at the high school. Stephanie Lassise, again, to have, you know, somebody with a voice and a focus on special education as a department head for special ed at the high school made a ton of sense to me. And then we were left with Maggie, Rich, John, and Raf, and then again, you know, kind of a random, you know, sort of a random draw among those 4 who, you know, all are involved in different things and represent different departments and things like that, but just sort of went with a little bit of luck of the draw on filling that last spot. I reached out to Matt Cornelis on the town manager designee. You'll see here that Bob LaLassure had volunteered. Bob reached out to me. He'd also had a conversation with Matt at some point and just, you know, articulated that if there was a spot where he could make sense, you know, he'd be happy to participate. He obviously participated on the last one in his role as town manager at the time. So I did reach out to Matt and I gave him a heads up, you know, hey, you know, I don't know what your capacity for this is, but Bob mentioned he's available. I think one thing that is important in the screening committee process is somebody who has a, you know, really good understanding of municipal finance, and I think Bob's probably second to none there. I think, Tom, with you on the committee, I'm comfortable, you know, I'm certainly comfortable that we have enough, you know, enough expertise there, and Matt as well, obviously, but Matt did articulate that he's available and wants to serve in that capacity himself. So that one's there, and then Chief Clark and I have been going back and forth on email a little bit. The scheduling is a little bit tough for them. They've, you know, the obvious candidates have some significant conflicts in the weeks that we would have the screening interviews, so we're still working through it there, but you know, what we'd be asking you to approve tonight is sort of a TBD slot, still, you know, coming from the RPD. So that's the rundown and the rationale. We haven't notified any of these folks, so we certainly can adjust this, but I wanted to share that and sort of get the committee's perspective.
Can you clarify what levels the teachers are at? I know some of them, but not all of them.
Yeah, so Jess through RAF are all at the high school. Susie Carroll is an ELA teacher at Coolidge, sixth grade, I think.
Yes.
And then Cindy and Jennifer Delaney are both at the elementary level.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about the parents? Do any of them represent high schoolers?
Yep, Matt McLeod has one at each level.
Oh, great.
Megan Baker has elementary and middle school, and then Joe's got, I think, 3 kids, all in elementary school. Oh, you know them.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
That's good. I wasn't sure if there was a high school parent, but I think that's important.
there is, yeah. And I think Matt, if I'm not mistaken, has been involved with the Killen Project as well, in some capacity. So, anyway.
And Susie Carroll has multiple
She
kids
does.
in the district.
And
Yeah,
graduates.
Yeah.
That falls off the page here, but a couple of these folks are,
school.
parents
Yeah,
as well.
okay.
Yeah, Susie's got students at middle school and high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
In Bentley, right?
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, and one who's graduated. And Aaron Burchill also has a
Yes,
student in the
right,
district.
okay.
Yeah.
So counting the ones in bold, you'd have 17?
That's the
That you had-
17 that we
Yeah.
targeted with, again, those 2 that we had earmarked for parents being reallocated to an additional teacher and an additional central office member, or member of the admin.
So I think you've done a pretty good job here, Sean. It's never easy to balance it all. Whether you coin flipped or thought or argued or debated all the different things, you never really know, and how that works. Coin flip is fine. If RPD is not able to fill the role, what are you inclined for?
But
Can I, because I was going to bring that up, I would put Bob LaLasher in there. The finance piece of it is important. I know Tom is on there. I can't, nobody knows municipal financing better than Bob. He's a community member. His kids went through the district. I would love to see him on this committee.
yeah, Tom, I hadn't thought about it. I haven't put much thought into it because I'm still hopeful, based on my exchange with Chief Clark, that we're gonna get somebody from the PD. It may not end up being an SRO, or I think his initial instinct was Deputy Chief Amendola, but she's at I forget what it's called, Command Academy or something like that for the first 3 days of interviews. So I still expect that we'll get somebody from RPD, so I hadn't put a ton of thought into it. I think the options would be Bob. The options would be, another one of the interested teachers or members of the admin that raise their hand. We could think about another town staff member in a department that we, face off with, whether that's facilities or DPW or, something like that. So I think there are options, but I don't have a lean one way or the other.
I think it's important that we don't overbalance in terms of our staff ratio. So I think as much as I appreciate they're all in there and they all want to participate, we have to keep some degree of balance as we go through this. So if that's.
And at the high school in particular, we'd be adding another high school teacher, which would be a very overweighted block of,
It's not necessary.
That was another thing I don't know Mr. Estes, what subject does he teach?
physics, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So we have the sciences, we have history covered, we have English with Ms. Carroll, Jess is special, okay, so I'm just trying to make sure we're covering certain subjects as well.
Yeah, we don't have math, but we have STEM.
Yeah. And physics is a lot of math, so I'm not worried about that.
There.
Well, and
Yeah.
Sarah knows
Yeah.
math.
Yeah, I mean, she does,
Program.
well, and Aaron covers a lot of the ELA side of it as well, so I'm just looking at the whole, I really think it's a good combo, good mix across the board overall.
I'm kind of torn, like, if it's not going to be a school resource officer, or it's not going to be like Dave
Steve
Clark, I guess I'm kind of wondering how attached someone else is necessarily going to feel. I would maybe go back to Chief Clark and say, if this is going to put a burden on these people who do have a tie to the schools, Bob did volunteer. I don't know,
Rich Abadi, was he considered?
I have to assume he was considered because it was him and Chief Clark that I contacted initially, yeah.
Okay.
But, you know, he mentioned those dates were tough for their SROs and command staff, and they were still working through who would be available.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Aaron. If you're not going to have an SRO or the chief, I'd rather
someone
have.
with some of,
yeah.
you know, because like Chief Clark has to communicate with you on the regular, right? Like, that's an important relationship.
Right.
I'm not like, not putting pressure on Chief Clark to step up for this, but I'm just saying, I feel like it should be someone who has some connection to this position or to the schools. Otherwise,
Remind me, does the 17 number, where does that come from?
it doesn't.
Okay, so it's not
It was
that
a
we're,
balancing of all the roles.
okay, but we're not mandated to have.
No,
okay.
You know,
It's quite a
It is
large
good to
group.
have an odd number, though.
yeah,
Okay,
that was the
yeah.
only thing, yeah. I think we were at 16 at some point and
Got
decided
it.
we wanted an odd number, and
Okay.
we added, I don't remember what we added to get
Yeah.
to an odd number, but, yeah, that's the only sort of
Okay.
thing we designed for there.
The only other person I would consider would be Joe Huggins, but he's
Yeah.
got so much going on with Killen,
that-
right?
that-
So I can't overload him in that regard in this tight window.
That's
So-
why I was thinking Bob, too.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, you know, it would be good to have Joe on there, but Bob's another check in that box, too.
I don't know if you all saw that, but there was just a comment, you know, I don't need to say this particular name, but, you know, there are 2 lieutenants who live in town and have kids in the schools, right? So I hear the point,
okay.
I hear the point, and I don't suspect Chief Clark is going to assign, you know, going to suggest random, brand-new 24-year-old
Yeah.
officer. I think, you know, I think it's,
He's going to send Rusty.
I think it'll, yeah. But like, you know, Detective Lewis, you know, would certainly be, you know, still be relevant,
Yes.
or, you know, I mean, so.
Yeah, the category is broader of
Yeah.
people who have, I didn't mean to
And-
minimize that,
and
but.
we did, my only hesitation too is we did say it's, you know, police chief, SRO, or designee. You know, so we did give them a little bit of license to determine who the right person is. I know Chief Clark's being thoughtful about, you know, who that would be, but,
Okay.
so I mean, if they're not able to come up with somebody that makes sense, you know, I'm hearing, you know, support to maybe think about Bob for that role. But I do want to give Chief Clark the opportunity to work through that with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Good on that point. So going back to the special ed piece, the para that's on there, and I'm blind, so Delaney,
Jen Delaney, yeah.
what building level is she?
She's at
Is
Woodend.
she special ed or gen ed?
Special ed
Okay.
para at Woodend.
And again, we might not get this, but I think, you know, having a parent with special ed experience would be my preference as well, because it is a different perspective than a teacher or somebody in the building with special ed experience.
You have
So
me on
if,
there too for that.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I would love an elementary
Lots of
special ed.
else as well,
Yeah.
but, yeah,
Nobody still
They-
does.
I know, it's so, it's more airing my frustration of just, and saying out loud, like, that it's just, it's a different perspective.
Also shows you how different we are from.
Yeah. The other, you know, if I hear back from the CPAC board and there is somebody who raises their hand, I mean, we could either, you know, that slot that may or may not open up, we could, you know, put a parent there. Or we could go with, you know, 18. You know, it's, I don't know, I mean, from your experience, how many of the votes really require a tiebreaker versus there being some degree of consensus?
there weren't many 9-8 votes.
Yeah,
No.
so, I mean.
There were a lot of 12-5 votes, 13-4 votes.
Yeah.
So maybe what I'll suggest is, you know, from a motion perspective, we sort of focus on the 17 that are bolded here, leaving the door open to identify a backfill if RPD is not able to identify somebody, and to accept an additional parent who represents CPAC if they're able to identify one. So
Sounds great.
17, potentially 18,
Works for me.
with this makeup otherwise. I don't know what
Thank you for all
that,
the time you already put into
Sure.
this.
yeah.
It's not easy, so yeah, that's a big thank you. Yeah, it's a lot going on, Sean, so thanks.
I can breathe on Monday when this thing gets posted. We get a little bit of a reprieve, at least a little bit of better pacing anyway.
Do you want a motion?
Yeah, let's see what it sounds like.
Do you want a range? No. Motion to approve the superintendent search committee
As
as
proposed,
discussed, as proposed.
with,
And,
with license to add an additional parent as if necessary.
or modify the RPD position as necessary.
Yeah, that was part of our discussion, so I feel okay about that one.
So moved.
So moved,
Second.
says
Second by
Tom.
Tom.
Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, yeah, you made the motion. I don't know who seconded. We'll give it to you, Laura, that's
Oh,
fine.
no skin off my nose.
Okay. Any further discussion on this one? All in favor? All opposed? 6-0. Thank you, everyone.
Awesome.
All right, that brings us to the end of our agenda, and so in compliance with open meeting law, we will cease our discussion at this point. Is there a final motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded by Carla, all in favor? All opposed? We're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.